Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Agriland journalist Aisling O'Brien. Well, we hope you're enjoying the good weather that most of the country is experiencing at the moment, with high temperatures and, according to Met Éireann, good drying conditions for most of the country in the coming days. But the news that we're going to start with today on the podcast doesn't match the happy weather. I'm talking about the issue of bovine TB. If you've been reading Agriland and listening to the Farming Week in recent months, you'll know that the sense of urgency in tackling the increasing rates of TB is really picking up on a government level. The issue was discussed in detail at the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture and Food this week, with some stark figures presented on the future potential cost of the spiralling TB rates into the future. Aisling, can you tell us what was said?
Yes, Charles. Appearing before the committee this week from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine were Conor O'Mahony and Damien Barrett. Now, Damien Barrett is a Senior Superintendent Veterinary Inspector with the Department and Conor O'Mahony is a Principal Officer with the Department. Now, the committee heard that as of June 8th of this year, 6,458 herds have suffered a TB breakdown in the past 12 months. That's compared to a figure of 5,217 in the same period last year. Now, there's also been, as we've been reporting here on the Farming Week, a substantial increase in the number of reactors. And the latest figures we got is that 42,970 reactors were disclosed in the last 12 months in comparison to 31,797 in the previous 12-month period. That's an increase of 35%. Now, in addition to that, almost 10 million tests were carried out as of June 8th, 2025, compared to around 9.9 million tests in the same period in 2024. So the officials from the department, they couldn't provide a clear timeline yet, Charles, for new TB control plans, or when the minister has been talking about these new proposals maybe to overhaul the eradication programme that we have in place. No firm time frame was put forward for that at the moment. The meeting, as you did say, it did allude to the issue of costs of the eradication programme, and the department confirmed that the overall cost to the exchequer of the National TB Eradication Programme, excluding staff costs, has increased from 57 million in 2023 to over 100 million last year. And it's on track to increase further this year. Here is an exchange between Fianna Fáil, Carlo Kilkenny TD, Peter Chap-Clear and Conor O'Mahony, the Principal Officer at the Department of Agriculture.
What's the forecast cost for 25? What are you projected for 26 and what are you projected for 27? You outlined in terms of timelines earlier, in terms of it's not going to be eradicated. What kind of financial costs do we envisage? Last question.
If I can answer that, Chairman. For the rest of this year, we will be expecting, at current disease levels, which were to maintain, approximately 130 million euros.
130 for this year. And next year?
Again, continuing with existing current disease levels and existing controls, you will be talking 170, 180.
And by 2030, last question, by 2030, 5 years' time, but in this, what are we looking at?
We haven't estimated that far in terms of financial cost.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
So as you heard there, Charles, in that exchange between Conor O'Mahony from the Department of Agriculture and TD Peter Chap-Clear, we are looking at a figure of about 130 odd million for this year, and based on the current existing disease levels and existing controls next year, that figure could reach between 170 and 180 million euros. So it's a really substantial cost, especially when you see that the figures are going in the wrong direction. Now, Conor O'Mahony said that the primary driver of the increased costs has been compensation due to increased disease levels. And he said that the quickest way that we can reduce the cost is to drive down disease levels. And the representatives from the department said, as I said, that they couldn't present any definitive timeline for the new measures around TB. And the department said that the new proposals, once agreed, would set out how the department and stakeholders alike could continue to engage on issues impacting TB levels in this country. And they did say that that will involve difficult choices. And that's something that we have heard before, Charles. You know, there's some interesting proposals and proposals that have raised some eyebrows amongst farmers in terms of how it might impact on them. But the department and farming organisations, I think, both agree that an overhaul is needed persuaded of what we're doing, and what we're doing at the moment is not working. Obviously, when you see the figures going in the wrong direction as well. And Michael Cronin, who's the chair of the TB 2030 Stakeholder Forum, he also attended the Oireachtas Committee this week, and in his written submission, he did say that the forum held a number of meetings at the end of 2024 and in February and March of this year in response to the increase in the disease around the country. And he said at the February meeting it was agreed that there was an urgent requirement to set out new measures for inclusion in the TB programme to reduce levels of the disease in cattle. And he said that he had written to Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden about this, and he explained that the forum had been going through the process of getting agreement on additional measures, but he did give the opinion in that letter that there was an urgent need for changes to the TB programme, but he said he did not believe that agreement on additional measures would be reached in the TB forum alone in the time frame required to address the continuing increase in disease levels out there. And since then, now the Minister, of course, has held a number of high-level meetings with farm organisations and department officials, and we are hearing that the deliberations are, and the outcome of those deliberations is meant to be, I suppose, announced shortly from the Minister. And the Minister himself actually did appear before the Oireachtas Committee on this issue this week as well, Charles, and he said that he cannot afford not to act, as he's putting together at the moment a very strong business case for his government colleagues, I suppose, particularly in the Department of Finance, the people who control the purse strings essentially for extra TB funding. And he acknowledged that there is a substantial financial burden both on the Exchequer and on farmers already as a result of TB. And he says that he hopes to see progress in lowering TB rates in the years to come through the implementation of these new measures. But he said he will need more money to implement those, and that is what he is working on at the moment. So, as I said, Charles, no definitive timeline for these new TB measures, but we did learn a lot about costs and the trajectory of the disease, which is going in the wrong direction at the moment.
We'll move on now, and since we spoke to you last week, we've had several milk price announcements, most of which have not exactly been what dairy farmers would have wanted to hear. Aisling, can you take us up to date on where milk prices stand at the moment across the processors?
Yes, Charles. So of the processors that have made announcements while we're recording at this point on Thursday, the first announcement, which is normally the way with the milk price announcements, came from Lakeland Dairies, and they decided to leave their base price unchanged from April, but they did say that there would be a 0.5 cent a litre unconditional bonus paid on all litres supplied in May. So that means that there is a price of 49.25 cent a litre paid for milk in the Republic of Ireland based on 3.6% butterfat and 3.3% protein. And Lakeland said that that price is inclusive of that unconditional bonus as well as the sustainability incentive payment of 0.5 cent a litre as well. In the north, there'll be a price of 40.3 pence per litre paid on all milk supplied in May, which is inclusive of a 0.5 pence per litre unconditional bonus on all milk supplied in May, as well as that sustainability incentive payment as well. Now, looking to some of the other processors, Kerry Dairy Ireland announced a price of 50.03 cent a litre, including VAT, quality and sustainability bonuses. That compares to a Kerry Dairy Ireland milk price for April of 50.43 cent a litre. And based on Kerry Dairy Ireland's average milk solids for May, they said that the milk price return inclusive of VAT and quality and sustainability bonuses is 52.75 cent a litre. Now, the Dairy Gold Board confirmed a cut to its May quoted milk price of 1 cent a litre to 49 cent a litre based on standard constituents, inclusive of sustainability and quality payments and VAT. And the processor said that the May milk price equates to an average May Farmgate milk price of 53.4 cent a litre based on the average May milk solids achieved by Dairy Gold milk suppliers. Now, Tirlawn said it will pay a total of 49.08 cent a litre, including VAT, for May creamery milk supplies. And the May milk price is down on the price that Tirlawn paid for April creamery milk supplies, which stood at 50.08 cent a litre, including VAT. Now, Tirlawn's May milk price consists of a base price of 48.58 cent a litre, including VAT, and a sustainability action payment of half a cent a litre as well, including VAT. Carberry Group, they've reduced their milk price for the month of May by 1 cent a litre, and if that decision is replicated, Charles, across the 4 West Cork co-ops of Bandon, Barryroe, Drina and Lissavard, it will result in an average milk price of 51.07 cent a litre, inclusive of VAT, and a half a cent a litre somatic cell count bonus and the future proof sustainability bonus as well. And this average milk price is a reduction on the 52.12 cent a litre average for April as well. And I suppose just before we leave prices, looking to the global markets as well, Charles, the global dairy trade, they held their latest trading event on Tuesday of this week, and following that auction, the price index fell again. It declined by 1% to settle at 1,299, and that marks its third consecutive decrease. And you'd have to go back to May 6th for the last time there was an increase in the GDT. There was a 4.6% bounce in that. Some interesting commodity movement there in terms of butter and cheddar. They saw increases, decreases in the other commodities, but you can see a full breakdown on the Agriland website and app for that.
Well, one sector we don't talk about too often is the poultry sector. The sector has recently come up, of course, in relation to bird flu, but the reason the sector is coming up in the news this week is quite different, but not positive news by any means, which is that the broiler sector, which raises chickens for meat, has been removed from the flat VAT rate for farmers. Aisling, this is a little bit complicated, but can you give us the gist of the decision from the Department of Finance?
Yes, Charles, let's start by discussing the flat rate addition scheme itself. So this is a measure that compensates farmers who are not VAT registered for the VAT incurred by them on input costs used in the course of their farming activities. So this is achieved through the addition of a flat rate percentage, which currently stands at 5.1%, to the price charged by the farmer for their supplies to a VAT registered entity, such as maybe a meat processing business, or in the case of dairy farmers, a milk processor. So the use of this scheme for farmers is provided for under EU legislation. But a key element of the scheme is that it should not lead to a situation where farmers are overcompensated for VAT incurred by them on their business costs. And this is where the broiler sector seems to have run into issues, because Minister for Finance Paschal Donohoe said he has, as he confirmed there earlier, made the decision to remove the poultry broiler sector from this scheme from September 1st. And the Department of Finance said the Minister has made this decision based on advice provided to him by the Revenue Commissioners and the Department that overcompensation is occurring within the broiler sector. So there was an investigation in 2018, and the Department said that Revenue had determined that there was a significant amount of overcompensation occurring in the poultry sector through this scheme, and the matter then subsequently was re-examined over the past 18 months, and the Department said it has been determined that overcompensation is still occurring, resulting in this move by Minister Paschal Donohoe. So as I said, from September 1st of this year, farmers in the poultry broiler sector will not be able to charge the flat rate addition on the sale of their goods in services. Instead, they're going to have to register for VAT if the level of their poultry broiler business is above the relevant VAT registration threshold in order to claim back VAT on their inputs. So this obviously has come in, for a lot of criticism from the farm organisations, in particularly the IFA and the IFA's Poultry Committee Chair Nigel Sweetenham. He hit out at the decision to exclude broiler poultry farmers from the flat rate addition scheme, and he said that the Minister's decision means that from September next, broiler poultry farmers can no longer apply this 5.1% VAT addition to their sales. And he said it's a massive blow to the sector, which is already under massive pressure due to very significant increases in production costs, some of which have been imposed by the government itself and its policies, according to Nigel Sweetenham. Now, he said the likely outcome of this move is that some broiler poultry farmers may well exit the sector, and he said it's also inevitable that the cost of chicken in supermarkets will have to increase, meaning that consumers out there will have to carry the cost of the minister's decision, according to Nigel Sweetenham. And he said that the decision to exclude a single sector from this scheme is unprecedented from an Irish perspective. And he said that the IFA had worked tirelessly to find a solution to this issue, and they had numerous engagements with the government, including the current and the former ministers for agriculture and for finance. And they've always stressed, he said, the lack of fairness at precluding the broiler poultry farmers from this scheme. And he said they also put forward some constructive alternative proposals for consideration, but he said these were not acted upon as well. And he said this all has come at a time when farmers are already under immense financial pressure. He did, as I said, point to the increase in costs and everything like that. And he said farmers actually, by coincidence and at the same time, have been actively seeking price increases, and they've been engaging with processors and retailers over recent weeks, and they continue to do so to recover rising input costs, he said. And poultry farmers, he said, cannot be expected to absorb a substantial cut in income imposed on them by the government. And it will be interesting to see, I suppose, I don't know if the minister is for turning, to use that phrase, Charles, on this, because it seems like this follows quite a lengthy investigation, and then a review of that investigation, in recent months. So a disappointment definitely for the poultry broiler farmers out there. And the IFA said it's going to continue to engage with the government on this issue. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Changing sectors once more, moving over to the tillage sector, there was some positive news there this week relating to the Straw Incorporation Measure, or SIM, with Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden announcing that all applicants will be accepted for 2025. Aisling, this news has been welcomed by the tillage sector, it seems.
Yes, Charles, the IFA and the Irish Grain Growers Group, the IGG, both welcomed this move by Minister Hayden this week. So the Straw Incorporation Measure, as he said, it's a scheme under Ireland's CAP strategic plan, and it's designed to provide financial support to tillage farmers to increase soil organic carbon levels by chopping and incorporating straw from cereal and oilseed rape crops. And the rate of payment under the scheme is €250 per hectare for oats, wheat, rye and barley, and it's €150 a hectare for oilseed rape. There's a minimum claim under this scheme of 5 hectares and a maximum of 40 hectares. And the Department of Agriculture confirmed this week that it has received 3,057 applications for the scheme to date. Now, the crop area under the scheme, they did provide a breakdown, but there is over about 66,000 hectares of cereals and oilseed rape that have been submitted for chopping and incorporating this year. And the department noted that these figures represent the areas that have been applied for under the scheme, and that these will be higher, I suppose, than the final payable areas as well. Now, the minister said that the SIM has proven to be a very popular scheme. I suppose we remember last year when there was talk about the Straw Incorporation Measure not going ahead and the controversy that led to, Charles. So it is a very popular scheme out there, and he did say that it is giving tillage farmers an economic boost, and it's also ensuring an increase in carbon sequestration. And he said it shows the commitment of Irish farmers to the climate and the environment. And as I said, IFA Grain Committee Chair Kieran McAvoy said the decision by the minister, it was a rare good news story for a sector which he said is in bad need of a lift. And he said straw yields on crops this year will be very varied, with crops such as winter barley and winter wheat looking very promising, but then many spring barley crops unfortunately out there look set to produce well below average yields of grain and straw. And he said therefore the scheme payment will be particularly important for these crops as well. Now, McAvoy noted that income prospects for tillage this year remain on the floor, in his words, and confidence amongst growers is at a very low ebb, with many leaving the sector. And the IFA Grain Committee has called for a 5-year €250 a hectare support payment to be introduced for tillage farmers to help stabilise the sector. James Kelly, then the chair of the Irish Grain Growers Group, said the decision by the Minister on the Straw Incorporation Measure will bring certainty to tillage farmers before combines start to roll. And he said the flexibility within the measure ensures that those who are in need of straw for fodder should have access to straw if they request their order on time from tillage farmers. And he said that farmers see the benefit of incorporating straw, increasing biomass, improving soil health, storing carbon, reducing chemical fertiliser requirements, and making soil more resilient to weather events as well. And the IGG as well, they have a pre-budget submission. It's that time of the year, Charles. We're thinking ahead to the budget later on this year. But in their pre-budget submission, the group has sought to have the annual fund available for the Straw Incorporation Measure moved from 10 million to 15 million euro going forward. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any movement on that when budget time rolls around.
Now we're going to stay with tillage for our next item and talk about the price situation for farmers in the sector. Malting company Boortmalt is of course a major player in the sector, and concerns have been raised that the company plans to cut distilling and malting barley contracts, or at least that's what the Irish Farmers Association claims. But Aisling, can you shed some light on this?
Yeah, so the IFA said this week that any move to cut these contracts would be totally unacceptable, Charles. And Boortmalt issued a statement to Agriland this week saying it was aware of the decline in distilling volumes, which is bringing volatility to that segment. And the statement continued from the company saying that it's assessing the impact that this will have on malting barley demand. So no decision as of yet from Boortmalt, but big concerns out there, I suppose, given the mood music that we're hearing about this, that there could well be a cut. And Kieran McAvoy, the IFA grain chair, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago, said that malting barley growers have already taken pain earlier this spring with the implementation of contract cuts. And he said that farmers have already entered into agreements with merchants and planted specific quantities of distilling and malting barley in good faith. And he said that it appears Boortmalt wants to ignore their contract with merchants and farmers after they have planted the crops. And so I suppose we're going to keep a very close eye on this, Charles, as it develops. Boortmalt saying that they've not made a decision on this yet, but big concerns being raised by the IFA about the possibility that there may be a cut coming there.
We'll move on now and talk about a few rural life related news updates. Firstly, there was a potentially very significant decision handed down by the Supreme Court recently, which ruled that landowners are entitled to compensation for depreciation of land value across their entire land holding when the ESB erects electricity pylons on the land. You can read more about that important story on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. Staying on land, the Sherry Fitzgerald Agricultural Land Price Barometer saw a return to more sustainable growth in land prices in 2024, with values rising by 5.4% in 2024 compared to 8.4% and 12.4% in 2023 and 2022 respectively. Again, you can read more about that breaking story on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. Finally, on the rural life front, the Road Safety Authority has said it is considering the introduction of a mandatory training programme and a driving test for new Category W only learner permit applicants. Aisling, can you tell us what we need to know on that?
So firstly, Charles, we might just discuss what a Category W vehicle refers to. So they are vehicles that are work vehicles and tractors with a maximum design speed of 40 kilometres an hour that are constructed primarily for work other than for the carriage of goods or burdens by road. That is the official definition from the RSA. Now, a spokesperson for the authority has told Agriland that this has been considered, this introduction of a mandatory training programme and a driving test for new Category W only learner permit applicants. And it has been decided that it will become part of a review of the Learning to Drive curriculum. And the RSA said this work will be ongoing as part of phase 2 of the road safety strategy. And that is due to be launched shortly. And it's going to run from this year until 2027. And staying on that topic, Charles, before we leave it, we also reported this week on Agriland that teenagers are being offered the chance to learn proper and safe tractor driving habits through a dedicated course that is going to be run in Kerry and in Cork. And hundreds of young people have actually completed the safe tractor driving skills course since it was developed around 15 years ago by by the North East West Kerry Development Group. And John Dalton, he's a member of the Farm Family Committee of NEWKD, and he's the coordinator of the course. And he told us that the training has been expanded this year to include boys and girls aged from 14 to 17. And he said the reason that they do the course is they feel there's a lot of young people going out on tractors at a very young age and they don't have any idea of the safety aspects of driving a tractor. And the course not only teaches these important safe skills to teenagers when driving tractors, but it also includes some basic first aid training. And John Dalton made a really good point there that, you know, when it comes to an accident on the farm, you know, it's important that these young people will have some idea of how to handle it or maybe what to do. And he said when it comes to an accident on the farm, 5 minutes could mean an awful lot, which is a really good point. So it's another really important skill. So we have details of those one-day courses taking place from June 24th to July 18th, as I said, in Marts in Kerry and in Cork. And we were told that there are limited places. They only take 12 participants on each day there. But if there is demand, that maybe an extra date could be added to that. So if you are in that region, and John Dalton said that, you know, teenagers and their families have travelled from further afield than Kerry and Cork to attend these courses, if it is something you're interested in, you can look up the story in Agriland and you'll see the contact details there for North East West Kerry Development.
Yeah, a very worthwhile initiative there, Aisling. But that's just about where we'll leave it for today. But just before we go, Aisling, you went on an interesting field trip recently. Do you want to briefly tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so we're starting a new series this week, Charles. It's a 2-part series called Behind the Big Mac. And as the name suggests, we're focusing on McDonald's and I suppose the importance of Irish beef when it comes to the supply chain for McDonald's. And we recently travelled to Waterford and Kilkenny to have a look, I suppose, at the supply chain from farm to fork, essentially. 1 in 5 hamburgers sold in McDonald's outlets across Europe is of Irish origin. I'm not sure if you realise that. And about 40,000 tonnes of Irish beef is bought by McDonald's every year. So it's quite a substantial customer for Irish beef farmers. So as part of this fact-finding mission, we went to the farm of John Phelan in Blancheville in County Kilkenny. We learned all about his store heifer to beef finishing system. And we also travelled to the Dawn Meats plant at Carroll's Cross in Waterford, which is the processor's dedicated McDonald's facility for the UK and Ireland. And every hour at that plant, Charles, 5.3 tonnes of beef is processed. So here is some of what you can expect from the series. It is very interesting, but behind the scenes look, as I said, behind the Big Mac and the burgers that we see in McDonald's restaurants. Have a listen.
The beef that's processed here for the UK and Irish markets is the equivalent of about 47,000 quarter pounders an hour.
And then we started supplying Dawn Meats with our beef, and then McDonald's came on board. They're obviously a customer of Dawn, and a lot of our stock are going that direction now.
And that was just a taster of the Behind the Big Mac series, Charles. We've got some really fabulous video content as well from the farm in County Kilkenny and from that Dawn Meats plant in Waterford as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the McDonald's supply chain and the important role that Irish beef farmers play in it, you can check that out on our website and app now.
Thanks, Aisling. And very finally, if you're socialising this weekend and want to test your friends' knowledge on agriculture, you can check out our article on what came up in this year's Leaving Cert Agricultural Science paper and see how you would have got on. But we'll leave it there. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling and myself, enjoy the sun, stay sun safe and have a good weekend.